Welcome back to day 13 of Witchtober. So this one was a requested topic and I decided to bump the video I'd kind of thought about doing today, and I was like, this one's better. So this is how I got started with the Morrighan. So for those of you who have been here for a good while, you know that the beginning parts of my craft were heavily influenced by the fact that I was a young teenager. And so some of my life choices were heavily based on the fact that I was a young kid. Because, like, to be honest, at the time you don't feel like a kid, but now on the downhill slide to 30, I'm closer to 30 than 25, and it's like, you know, actually you were, and like my niece is like the same age, and it's like, you know what, like, you were a child. So all of that to say, like, I made decisions that were not how I would do things now. So to begin, I had been working with a different deity, and I also picked out of really stupid reasons. I was flipping through, well, that's where it all starts, is I was flipping through a book, like day one of being a witch, and it was like, pick your deity, and I'm like, okay, well, I like Egyptian mythology, so we'll start there. And I had picked Osiris because he was a zombie god. Yep. You know, there's so much reverence and love that we have towards the divine, and then I'm over here as a teenager like, nah, he's a zombie dude, that's cool. Yep. And then I was like, well, I guess he would get along with his wife, there we go, bam, done. And that worked for a long time. And I feel like he was just like that, like, kind of chill dad that just kind of chuckles at the chaos of, like, his children, and it's like, what the fuck ever, dude. And, like, doesn't care. And was like, you do you. Okay, yeah, sure. Because again, teenager, I feel like that's just a universal experience. And so she was much more of the calm, patient mother, and that worked for a long time. And a few years later, I decided to start venturing a little further into what my witchcraft could do, and I was getting kind of fed up that it wasn't working. And so I was also kind of like, oh my god, like, she's just... Isis is a very, like, loving, motherly type, not super cool. And I wanted a cool goddess. I wanted a dark, gothic-y, scary goddess. That's what I wanted. And I went looking, and I was like, ooh. And to be honest, anytime you tell a teenager there's a warning label, they have to fight against it. I think it's just ingrained in teenagehood. And that's what happened with the Morrighan. Every blog that I could find at the time, 90% of them or more are gone at this point, because it was a long time ago. But everywhere was like, don't work with her, she's evil, like, avoid at all costs, and that just makes a teenager want to do it more. And I was like, but why? Like, why are you so actively against this deity? What the hell? And so I got more curious the more I was told no. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna find out what I can about this deity. And so I looked it up, and I liked her because she was a dark, creepy, gothic looking goddess. That was the exact reason I picked her. Is that stupid? Yes. Is that exactly what a teenager would do? Also, yes. Let's just be real. Teenagers pick stuff for really stupid reasons, and that's what I did. And so I called on her a few different times, and I didn't get a no. I had gotten no from other deities in the past. Like, Caradwyn did not fuck with kids. She was like, absolutely not. You were too young, immature, no. Same thing with Odin. He's like, I don't have time for shenanigans of children. Bye. Like, no. And so the Morrighan, on the other hand, I think she saw potential and was like, sure, whatever. Because I think I had a connection with her more so, and even with Isis if I really wanted to analyze it that way. But I assume you're new here, so you might not know. I have a rare bleeding disorder. It's put me on the brink of death many, many a time. And so having that close link with death for so many years, and still, I mean, I have to be careful, one wrong nosebleed and I could die. Like, it's one of those things that you kind of forget about it, kind of, but then inevitably it comes back, and random things just remind you that, like, you don't have a normal experience because your blood literally will kill you because it doesn't know how to behave. And so I think being on that brink of death so many times, we were more on par. She was like, you're an idiot teenager, but you understand, you've matured in different ways. So she gave me a shot. I was a persistent little shit and I kept bugging her all the time over the stupidest of things. And I remember the first time I like officially called her in ritual, I wasn't sure what to expect, but like it was a clear night sky back when I would actually do rituals at night like you were supposed to, and then out of the blue it just started to storm and rain really hard, which is not very common here in Utah. Again, we're a desert, so like we do get some, but not a lot. So it was rare, and it was like, oh, no freaking way. And I closed the ritual and then it cleared up like immediately after. And then I did a few more things with her, and eventually I got to the point where it was like, you know, everyone was talking about being dedicated to a deity, and I was like, I'm having a really good time with her. I think that's the one. And so I set up a challenge to the goddess, which I would never do nowadays, but Isis failed it. And so and had done it quite a few times. And so this time I was like, listen, I will dedicate to you, I will be yours, but you have to help me through this. And I had very, very specific requirements, and she pulled through no sweat. And then she made sure, because this had never happened again, but made sure the exact situation happened again immediately after to prove a point. And it was the worst that I had ever had to deal with. And it was back to back. And it was like, oh my God. And that to me was her sign of like, see, I can do things, but also it's proof that I did it, it wasn't you. And so like right after that, I dedicated to her, and I have been a dedicant to her ever since. I don't really feel the need to move out of just me and her's relationship. You know, and a person who's really good to learn about being a priestess of the Morrighan is Stephanie Woodfield. She has books on it. She's got books specifically for working with the Morrighan and for how to be a priestess and things, and how there's varying levels of relationship with the divine. And I'm pretty good just being dedicated to her, just being called one of her daughters, and that's it. And even throughout all of the years, I can, like, she doesn't need a lot from me. We don't need to have a continuous, every day we sit together and have a conversation. She actually gets sick of that pretty quickly. Like, she'll just swoop in and be like, I want your attention for a minute. And it's like, okay, here's offerings and meditations. We're gonna do stuff. And then just as quickly as she comes, she leaves. And we're good for months at a time. And it's like, just an occasional like thought towards her is good. And like, she's letting me do other things. But every once in a while, she still comes back. And it'll still be times that I rely on her heavily. You know, like we had to put my cat down last year. It was her that I called to. And like when my uncle passed this last year, I called on her and Hell. And I don't think they have issues together. Because also there's like some arguments that like the Irish and the Norse have some overlap. And that it was like the Norse were the old gods that were there and the Irish are the new gods that took over for that region. And I kind of like that idea, but also it's like, I don't know, I can see the gods easily just working together. I don't think they need to have the human issues of like ego and such. And so I don't, and like Hell is super duper chill anyways. So like, I don't think she's gonna care. And like, you know, the Morrighan's just kind of there for me in this lifetime. And I feel like Hell is there for the long run for like most of us. And so, yeah, I've worked with the Morrighan on and off for many, many years now. Again, it waxes and wanes, and I used to feel really bad about it for a long time, where it was like, oh my God, like, I've got to do more for her. I need to have a dedicated altar just to her all the time, and I need to do offerings on a regular basis, and, you know, she needs to be at the forefront of everything. And to some people that might be true, but in my relationship with her, it doesn't need to be that way. And it'll just spontaneously happen, but for the most part, she's like, yeah, go explore, I don't care. Like, again, right now I'm working with Frey and Freya, and Hell, and like she does not care like at all. And like they also don't care equally. Like it's not a competition, and I've worked with her on equal grounds with Odin and Thor. And some people say that you shouldn't mix pantheons. I've never had an issue with her with the pagan pantheons. There was two rituals where she actively said no. There was one class I went to a long time, like a decade or more ago, that I went to, and they were invoking all of these like the archangels and stuff, and me and her are very much like, I was more like, okay, this feels like kind of creepy. I'm not huge into this, but whatever. And I was like, okay, Morrighan, do you want to be here and just kind of, no, that was a hard no. And she was like, I will see you outside of the building. This is your problem. And so that was a very hard no. And then there was another ritual where they were invoking like every different random ass deity that you could imagine, just for the sake of it, it felt like. And she was like, no, this is just no. And it turned out that that group was really not for me anyways, and like her not wanting to show up there was a good key reminder that it was probably her also nudging, looking at it now of like, neither of us should be here actually. And I learned that not too long after. It's a group I've talked about before that was very overly sexual for Beltane, with a minor there. Being a minor, that was, yeah, Beltane is where I judge everybody. So like, you know, there's been a few times where she said no to rituals, but for them, like for myself, like any rituals that I've hosted and like our chill ones we've done with like family and friends and with my husband, because again, he mostly has only worked with the Norse, and now like Hecate's kind of becoming a thing for him. And like, I don't see any issue with Hecate and the Morrighan and the Norse gods chilling in the same circle. Like, I genuinely don't think they're gonna care. Like, it's all about how you do it respectfully, and like, just being like, hey, like, it's sort of like if you have different friends from different friend groups, typically they can get along in like a single setting to be like, hey, like, could we sit down to have like Thanksgiving dinner together? They're pretty much gonna be fine, because they're gonna be like, hey, well, you know, like, look, ooh, stuffing. Like, they're not gonna care for the most part. And they're also deities. They can be well beyond the human ego of, but you're not part of my group. Like, I don't think the gods really care. Except, again, in certain situations, but I think it was just the Morrighan more nudging that I shouldn't be there or shouldn't be going down that path anyways. And her not supporting was like a red flag of like, oh, but why? Because you're usually there. So over the years, she's kind of come and gone, but never really leaves. And, you know, I find times to honor her, and she lets me just explore and do my own things, and it feels like she's just my guide for this lifetime. And yeah, so that's my summarized many years with the Morrighan. So again, if you want more resources on working with her, I highly recommend Stephanie Woodfield. She's got some fantastic resources. I want to read the run from Courtney Weaver. I'm really excited about that. Of course, none of the freaking libraries have it. That's one of the things with the Morrighan that has always pissed me off. Whenever she is calling desperately, I can never find information. It like all but disappears. Videos, websites, blogs, books. You try and find it, it ain't there. And then like, you have to seek it out so much. And like, you truly have to become like this, like, you have to figure it out for yourself. You don't learn it from a book, you experience it for yourself. That's been a big key factor with Morrighan, because after I've learned whatever the hell she wanted me to learn about her, or the lesson that she's trying to teach me, then all of that information is there as if it was always there. It is the wildest thing. And I feel like that's happening with Courtney Weaver's book, because I'm like, I want to read this book, but why is it not at the library? And not even like just mine, like the interloan library system, it's not there, but they got every other book from her. I'm like, why this one in particular? And that's just one of the ways with Morrighan being like, we need to figure it out together first. She's an interesting goddess in that way. I've never had another deity except Odin do that. All of the others are chill finding information about me. It's cool, what ifs? Her and Odin are like, nah, let's make it a challenge. So anyways, those are my thoughts. That's my experience with the Morrighan, and I would love to know yours. I've connected with her easily here in Utah and found her in my landscapes here, even though it is not Ireland. And yeah, I don't know. I could, if I need to do a part 2, I could, I guess. But basically, I've worked with her a lot. I have some ancestry ties to her, some ancestry ties to the Norse. So maybe that's why I get called to them. I don't know, but I also worked with Isis. I don't think I have anybody in the past from there. But also you could argue that we're just part of the human family, so it doesn't really matter, because we all came from the same creatures that crawled out of the ocean. So, you know. Anyways, till next time, thank you for your support on Patreon. If you want to support, it's linked down below. And yeah, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And my camera's overheating, so bye!